High-income skills do not reward the man who studies the longest. They reward the man who turns skill into proof fastest. Most men waste years because they confuse learning with becoming valuable. They collect courses, tools, notes, and frameworks because preparation gives them the feeling of progress without the humiliation of being tested. But the market does not pay for what you understand in private. It pays for a result a buyer can see, measure, trust, and use. That is the mechanism most men avoid. Skill only compounds when it is attached to one buyer, one problem, public output, and repeated feedback. Without that, you do not become dangerous. You become educated, invisible, and easy to dismiss. The answer is not reckless action or pretending you are ready. It is focused execution. One skill, one market, one proof every week. That is how scattered learning becomes leverage. But here is the wound. You may feel ambitious in private, but the world can only judge what you make visible. Your family cannot see the version of you that exists in your imagination. Your friends cannot respect the results you have not produced. The market cannot pay for potential that has not been turned into evidence. You may be capable, you may be intelligent, you may be serious. But if that seriousness leaves no proof, the world treats it like noise. The mother law is simple. Hidden skill has no leverage, not because the world is fair, not because the best man always wins, not because talent is useless, but because judgment follows evidence. People judge what they can see before they ever understand what you carry inside. That is why this order matters. First, you stop scattering your attention. Then you define the buyer. Then you build projects that force reality to test you. Then you measure what you are producing. Then you seek feedback before you feel ready. Then you build one public channel where your proof accumulates. Then you create a weekly proof ritual. Then you attach your skill to a specific market. And finally, you stay long enough for the market to remember you. Miss this order, and you do not become a high-income man. You become a man with saved courses, unfinished plans, half-built skills, private ambition, and public invisibility. The final rule matters because most men quit right before the market has enough evidence to trust them. But first, you have to stop collecting skills. Rule 1. Stop collecting skills. Skill collecting feels intelligent, but it often hides fear. A man with 10 unfinished skills has no weapon. He has scattered attention. He learns copywriting for 3 weeks. Then AI automation. Then coding. Then sales. Then trading. Then video editing. Then data analysis. Then he starts again because starting again feels clean. But the market does not reward beginnings. It rewards depth. This is the part most men refuse to admit. They are not always switching because they found a better opportunity. They are switching because the last skill started to expose them. The first project was ugly. The first offer was ignored. The first outreach received no reply. The first portfolio looked basic. The first attempt showed the distance between the man they imagined and the man they currently are. That gap hurts. So they rename avoidance as research. They say they are finding the right path. They say they are exploring options. They say they are building a foundation. Sometimes that is true, but often it is shame management. Each new skill gives them a fresh identity before the old one can be judged. The ugly stage is where every serious man is tested. Your first sales page will not sound powerful. Your first automation will break. Your first data analysis will be messy. Your first video will feel stiff. Your first offer will feel weak. Your first public post may receive silence. That silence is not proof that you chose the wrong skill. It is the price of entering reality. Private learning protects your ego. Public proof exposes it. Machiavelli wrote, Everyone sees what you appear to be, few really know what you are. That sentence is brutal because it removes your favorite excuse. You may know your intention, you may know your struggle, you may know your late nights, you may know how much you care. But the market does not live inside your intention. The market sees your visible form. If you appear scattered, you are treated as scattered. If you appear inconsistent, you are treated as unreliable. If you appear unproven, you are treated as risk. This is not cruelty. This is perception. The man who carries 10 unfinished weapons does not look versatile. He looks undisciplined. The man who sharpens one blade every week becomes more dangerous each time he returns to it. So pick one skill, not forever, not as a religious vow, but long enough to produce proof, long enough to enter the ugly stage, long enough to discover whether the skill has market value, whether you can tolerate the work, and whether you can build evidence around it. The rule is not that you can never change direction. The rule is that you are not allowed to call yourself strategic when you abandon every path before proof appears. A serious man does not need endless options. He needs a battlefield. One skill, one painful problem, one direction of pressure. Because choosing the skill is not enough. A skill becomes valuable only when it collides with a buyer. And this is where most beginners make the mistake that wastes years. Rule 2. Define the buyer before the skill. Do not learn in isolation from the market. A skill becomes high income only when a buyer sees it as relief from pain. That sentence is the difference between a hobby and a weapon. A man says, "I am learning copywriting." That is vague. Sharper is this: "I write copy for coaches selling premium programs." A man says, "I am learning AI automation." That is vague. Sharper is this: "I build AI follow-up systems for local service businesses losing leads." A man says, "I am learning data analysis." That is vague. Sharper is this: "I analyze profit leaks for e-commerce operators." A man says, "I am learning cybersecurity." That is vague. Sharper is this: "I perform basic security audits for small firms that cannot afford a serious breach." Specificity creates market signal. A buyer does not pay you because you are talented. A buyer pays because he recognizes his pain inside your offer. He does not wake up saying, "I need a highly motivated young man with potential." He wakes up saying, "Leads are being wasted. Sales are leaking. My team is slow. My reports are confusing. My website is not converting. My operations are messy. My risk is too high. My time is being stolen by manual work." The buyer pays for pain removal. So before you worship a skill, interrogate the market. Who has the problem? What do they already pay for? What result do they want? What pain are they tired of tolerating? What does failure cost them? Where does your skill remove pain, save time, create money, reduce risk, or increase speed? This is not motivational. This is economic realism. If you cannot name the buyer, you are probably building a hobby. And a hobby can make you feel alive, but it will not make you hard to replace. The scattered man asks, "What skill is hot?" The focused man asks, "Whose expensive problem can I solve?" That question changes everything. Once you know the buyer, your learning stops being random. You know what to study. You know what to build. You know what language to use. You know what proof matters. You know what result to chase. This is where Bloomberg becomes useful. Bloomberg was let go from Salomon Brothers after the firm was acquired in 1981. He could have treated that as humiliation. He could have disappeared into resentment. He could have spent years preparing, studying, planning, waiting for someone to restore his status. He did something colder. He used pressure to build around one specific buyer, one specific problem, and one specific proof. Financial professionals needed faster, better access to market information. That was the buyer. That was the pain. That was the battlefield. He did not build a vague skill. He attached skill to an expensive problem. That is why the lesson matters. Pressure alone does not make a man powerful. Pressure attached to a specific market can become leverage. Now look at Bill Gates and Paul Allen. They did not wait until they had a perfect software empire. In 1975, they built Altair Basic and sold it to MITS, Microsoft's first customer. That was not theory. That was not identity talk. That was not private ambition. That was proof. A new computer appeared. The window was narrow. They built software for a real machine. They sold it to a real customer. Speed of proof beat years of hidden preparation. These men did not become powerful because they collected knowledge in private. They became powerful because they turned knowledge into something the market could touch. Machiavelli wrote that men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand. In modern terms, people judge what they can see before they ever feel the depth of what you are. They do not see your notes. They do not see your saved courses. They do not see your late-night ambition. They see your output, your portfolio, your offer, your case study, your result, your public signal. This is why men with less potential but more visible proof move ahead of men who are still waiting to feel ready. If you are the right man, stop mistaking private preparation for progress. You already know learning matters, but your problem is that your learning has no buyer, no proof, and no pressure from reality. If you keep collecting information without turning it into visible evidence, you will become educated, invisible, and easy to replace. Inside Patreon, you get deeper, unfiltered breakdowns on proof, leverage, positioning, and self-command, so you can stop consuming and start building evidence the market can judge. This is not for men who want entertainment. It is for men who are finished hiding behind preparation. The decision is yours. Now the next trap is even more dangerous. Because once a man chooses a skill and defines a buyer, he often returns to the safest prison of all. He keeps studying. Rule 3. Use projects as the classroom. Courses teach language. Projects teach reality. A course can explain what a landing page is. A project forces you to write one, publish it, watch people ignore it, and then improve it until the message becomes sharper. A course can explain data visualization. A project forces you to clean ugly data, remove noise, find the signal, and explain what matters to a person who does not care about your technical vocabulary. A course can teach automation tools. A project forces you to connect systems that break, fail, misfire, expose your ignorance, and force you to become useful. This is why projects are ruthless. They do not care how smart you felt while watching the lesson. They reveal whether you can produce. Most men enjoy the emotional safety of learning because learning lets them feel close to power without being judged by power. They can watch a course and feel disciplined. They can take notes and feel serious. They can build a folder full of frameworks and feel intelligent. But a project asks a colder question. Can you make something work? Can you make it useful? Can another person understand it? Can a buyer trust it? Can a result be seen, measured, and improved? Every concept must become an output. Build, test, explain, publish, improve, improve, improve. That is the loop. Not learn, save, watch, fantasize, and restart. Build, test, explain, publish, improve. That is how skill begins to compound. Psychologist K. Anders. Erickson's research on deliberate practice showed that expert performance is not built through casual repetition. It is built through specific practice designed to improve performance with feedback and correction. That matters because doing the same easy thing repeatedly does not make you dangerous. It makes you comfortable. The unsupported man cannot afford comfort. He does not have enough inherited advantage to waste years feeling prepared. He does not have enough social capital to be discovered by accident. He does not have enough safety to treat learning like an identity. He needs friction. If you are learning copywriting, write one sales page every week. If you are learning AI automation, build one workflow every week. If you are learning data analysis, publish one business insight every week. If you are learning software, ship one small tool every week. If you are learning sales, make offers every week. The project is the classroom because the project humiliates fantasy. And humiliation, used correctly, becomes information. The immature man feels exposed and retreats. The strategic man feels exposed and studies the exposure. He asks, what failed? Where did the buyer lose trust? Where did the offer become unclear? Where did the system break? Where did the result become weak? What did reality reveal that private learning protected me from seeing? That is how a man changes. Not by telling himself he is serious, by creating a structure that punishes unseriousness. A project gives you evidence. Evidence gives you self-trust. Self-trust gives you discipline that does not depend on applause. This is the first identity shift. You are not a student waiting to become ready. You are a producer becoming sharper through contact with reality. But the project creates another problem. Once you produce, you can no longer hide behind the feeling of progress. Now your work can be measured. And that is where weak ambition begins to panic. Rule 4. Measure everything. Men waste years because they never measure progress. They say, I am improving. Based on what? They say, I am learning. Where is the output? They say, I am serious. What has changed? The unmeasured life becomes a fog. And fog protects weakness. That is why many men secretly avoid measurement. Not because measurement is complicated, but because measurement removes the story. It turns identity into evidence. It turns intention into numbers. It shows the difference between what you claim and what your structure actually produces. If you want to build high-income skills without wasting years, track the numbers that expose you. Hours practiced, projects completed, outreach sent, feedback received, case studies published, results created, offers tested, revenue generated, time saved, conversion improved, mistakes corrected. Do not track everything because you love spreadsheets. Track because what is not measured becomes fantasy. And fantasy is the drug of unsupported men who want to feel powerful before they have evidence. This is where Machiavelli's logic cuts through self-deception. Power is not what you imagine yourself to be. Power is what your structure can produce under pressure. If your structure produces no proof, you do not have power yet. You have intention. And intention does not negotiate well with the market. A man who tracks his output cannot lie to himself for long. If he says he is building a skill, the week will show it. If he says he is serious, the projects will show it. If he says he wants income, the offers will show it. If he says he wants feedback, the outreach will show it. Measurement is not there to shame you. It is there to end the confusion. Because once you see the numbers, you know where the war is. Maybe you are practicing but not publishing. Maybe you are publishing but not seeking feedback. Maybe you are getting feedback but not improving the offer. Maybe you are building projects but not attaching them to a buyer. Maybe you are visible but not specific. Maybe you are working hard, but your effort is not positioned where it can create leverage. This is why measurement is merciless. It does not care how exhausted you feel. It does not care how misunderstood you are. It does not care how badly you want people to believe in you. It asks one question: what evidence exists? And once that question enters your life, your excuses become weaker. You stop saying, I have been working on this for months. You start asking, how many proofs have I published? You stop saying, nobody supports me. You start asking, have I made my value visible enough to attract serious judgment? You stop saying, I am waiting for the right moment. You start asking, what did I ship this week? That question is dangerous, because a man who asks it every week cannot remain the same man for long. But measurement creates a second problem. Once you measure, you see the weakness clearly, and that is why most men avoid the next rule. Rule 5. Get feedback before you feel ready. Readiness is often fear wearing a professional mask. I need more time. I need one more course. I need to refine this. I need better equipment. I need to understand the niche first. Sometimes these things are true, but often they are just polished cowardice, not loud cowardice, not obvious weakness, not obvious weakness. A quieter kind, the kind that sounds responsible, the kind that hides behind standards, the kind that tells you to wait until the work is perfect because it knows perfection will never arrive. Feedback is dangerous because feedback ends the fantasy. Private study lets you imagine that your offer is strong. Feedback shows whether anyone cares. Private study lets you imagine that your work is clear. Feedback shows where people get confused. Private study lets you imagine that your skill is valuable. Feedback shows whether a buyer sees value or only effort. This is why the market sharpens faster than private study. A buyer ignoring your offer tells you something. A client questioning your result tells you something. A reader dropping off your article tells you something. A viewer leaving your video tells you something. A recruiter rejecting your portfolio tells you something. Feedback is not an insult, it is intelligence. Weak men personalize feedback. Strategic men weaponize it. The weak man hears rejection and turns it into identity. He says, they rejected me, so maybe I am not built for this. The strategic man hears rejection and turns it into information. He asks, what was unclear? What proof was missing? What result did they not trust? What pain did I fail to name? What did they need to see before they could believe? That is the difference between a man who collapses under judgment and a man who uses judgment as a sharpening stone. You do not need to feel ready before you enter the market. You need enough structure to learn from contact. There is a difference. Reckless action means you throw weak work into the world, learn nothing, and pretend failure is proof of courage. Strategic action means you expose work early enough to gather information, then improve it with discipline. That is how skill compounds. You make the offer, you see the silence, you rewrite the offer, you send it again. You get a question, you answer the question, you notice the objection, you build proof against the objection, you improve the result, you publish the case, you repeat. That loop will teach you faster than another month of private notes. Machiavelli understood the danger of relying on fortune. The man who relies on luck, discovery, timing, and someone eventually noticing his hidden potential remains dependent. The man who forces contact with reality begins to own the process. Translated into skill building, do not rely on being discovered. Do not rely on someone recognizing your private greatness. Do not rely on a mentor appearing. Do not rely on your family suddenly understanding. Do not rely on motivation staying loyal. Build a system that forces reality to answer you. That answer may be painful, but it is useful. The market may tell you your offer is unclear. Good, now you know. It may tell you your skill is too broad. Good, now you know. It may tell you your proof is weak. Good, now you know. It may tell you your buyer does not trust you yet. Good, now you know. A man who knows what is broken can repair it. A man protected from feedback stays vague, and vagueness feels safe until the years are gone. This is where unsupported men have to become colder. You cannot afford to protect your ego more than your future. You cannot afford to spend years preparing for a market that would have corrected you in weeks. You cannot afford to keep calling yourself serious while avoiding the one force that would make you sharper. Get feedback before you feel ready. Not because you are careless, because your readiness will be built by the feedback you are avoiding. But once feedback starts shaping the skill, the next question becomes unavoidable. Where does the proof go? Because a skill hidden in silence dies in silence. Rule 6. Build one public channel. You need one place where your proof accumulates, not 10. 1. This is where men confuse visibility with noise. They think building in public means posting everywhere, chasing every platform, copying every creator, and turning their work into performance. That is not strategy. That is scattered attention wearing a louder costume. You do not need to be everywhere. You need to be visible where judgment matters. If you sell to business owners, LinkedIn may work. If you build software, GitHub and a portfolio may matter. If you teach, YouTube may become leverage. If you write, a newsletter or case study page may become your proof vault. If you solve operational problems, case studies may be stronger than motivational posts. Pick the channel that fits the skill and the buyer. Do not choose a platform because it is popular. Choose the place where your buyer already looks for proof. Wrong channel means your proof exists, but not where judgment happens. A software buyer may not care about your motivational thread. He wants to see what you built. A business owner may not care about your technical vocabulary. He wants to see what problem you solved. A recruiter may not care about your private ambition. He wants to see a portfolio. A client may not care that you watched every lesson. He wants to see evidence that you can reduce pain. Visibility compounds. Hidden effort resets every day. That is the cruelty of invisible work. You may be improving privately, but the market has no memory of what it cannot see. Every public proof becomes a small signal. At first, nobody cares. That is normal. The first proof is not for applause. It is for positioning. You are teaching the market how to categorize you. This man writes offers. This man builds automations. This man analyzes data. This man ships tools. This man understands funnels. This man solves operational chaos. This man creates clarity. This man reduces risk. This man saves time. This man makes painful problems easier to understand. The goal is not fame. The goal is association. Your name plus a valuable outcome. That is reputation. And reputation is not built in a private folder. It is built through repeated visible evidence. This matters because the market is busy. People do not sit around wondering how talented you might be. They remember patterns. They remember signals. They remember the man who keeps showing up around the same problem with increasingly better proof. A man who posts random ideas teaches the market nothing. A man who publishes repeated evidence around one problem teaches the market how to remember him. This is the difference between attention and leverage. Attention says, look at me. Leverage says, remember what I solve. Do not build a public channel to impress strangers. Build it so your work stops disappearing, because hidden work forces you to restart every conversation from zero. Visible proof lets the next conversation begin at a higher level. When someone lands on your page, they should not have to guess what you do. They should see the trail, the landing page you rebuilt, the workflow you automated, the dataset you analyzed, the sales email sequence you wrote, the operational bottleneck you mapped, the prototype you built, the offer you tested, the process you improved, the conversion leak you found, the reporting problem you solved. That trail is not vanity. It is evidence. And evidence changes the cost of ignoring you. Without a public channel, your skill remains trapped inside effort. With one public channel, your effort begins to accumulate into reputation. But reputation does not come from one post, it comes from ritual. Rule 7. Create a weekly proof ritual. Every week, publish one proof of skill. Not inspiration, not vague motivation, not a recycled opinion about discipline. Proof. I rebuilt this landing page. I automated this manual workflow. I analyzed this dataset. I wrote this sales email sequence. I mapped this operational bottleneck. I built this prototype. I tested this offer. I improved this process. I found this conversion leak. I solved this reporting problem. This trains skill and reputation at the same time. The ritual matters because ambition without ritual becomes mood, and mood is a weak master. Mood disappears after work. Mood collapses when nobody supports you. Mood dies when your family doubts you. Mood vanishes when your first attempt gets ignored. Mood turns against you when you are tired, broke, uncertain, lonely, or ashamed. That is why serious men cannot build on mood. They build on ritual. One proof every week. Not because every proof will be impressive. Not because every proof will get attention. Not because the market will applaud immediately, because every proof creates a record that you are becoming the kind of man you claim to be. The first proofs may be crude. Good. Crude proof is still stronger than invisible potential. The early work may look basic. Good. Basic work can be improved. Hidden fantasy cannot. You may publish and hear silence. Good. Now you are no longer protected by imagination. You are inside the arena where the real sharpening begins. 52 proofs in a year changes a man, not magically, structurally. After 52 proofs, you have examples, you have patterns, you have feedback, you have improved judgment, you have visible commitment, you have a body of work, you have evidence that your ambition survived beyond emotion. Now you are not asking to be believed. You are building a public trail of evidence. That trail becomes your leverage. This is how the unsupported man replaces permission with proof. He stops waiting for family to understand. He builds proof. He stops waiting for friends to validate. He builds proof. He stops waiting for society to notice. He builds proof. He stops waiting to feel confident. He builds proof until confidence becomes a byproduct. The weekly proof ritual is not just a productivity tactic, it is identity reconstruction. A man who keeps proof promises to himself becomes harder to manipulate with doubt. He does not need constant encouragement because the evidence is growing. He does not need to explain every decision because the trail speaks. He does not need to beg for belief because the market can inspect his work. That is self-command. If you are the right man, stop confusing content consumption with transformation. You already know that proof matters, but your real problem is that your weeks do not force proof to appear. If you keep learning without publishing, you will stay trapped inside private ambition while other men with less potential become easier to trust. Inside Patreon, you get deeper, unfiltered breakdowns on how to build proof systems, sharpen positioning, and turn isolated discipline into leverage so you can become visible, useful, and harder to dismiss. This is not for men who want comfort. It is for men who want structure. The decision is yours. But there is one more layer. Proof becomes stronger when it is attached to a specific market. Rule 8. Attach skill to a specific market. The riches are not in vague skill. They are in applied skill. Copywriting is broad. Copywriting for coaches selling premium programs is sharper. AI automation is broad. AI automation for local service businesses is sharper. Data analysis is broad. Analytics for e-commerce operators is sharper. Cybersecurity is broad. Basic security audits for small firms is sharper. But this rule is not only about sounding specific, it is about becoming easier to remember. Specificity turns noise into signal. When you specialize, people understand where to place you. When people understand where to place you, they can refer you. When they can refer you, your market begins to multiply beyond your own effort. This is how invisible men become visible, not by shouting louder, by becoming easier to understand. The mistake many ambitious men make is believing that being general gives them more opportunity. They say, "I can help with anything." They think this sounds flexible. They think it makes them more valuable. They think it keeps more doors open. In reality, it often makes them forgettable. A general man must explain himself every time. A positioned man gets remembered when the problem appears. If someone hears, "I do marketing," they may forget you immediately. If they hear, "I help local dental clinics recover lost leads through automated follow-up," they know exactly where to place you. If someone hears, "I do data analysis," that may mean nothing. If they hear, "I help e-commerce operators find profit leaks in ad spend, inventory, and customer behavior," the mind can hold it. If someone hears, "I write copy," you become one of thousands. If they hear, "I write sales pages for coaches selling premium programs," the category becomes clearer. Specificity is not a cage, it is a signal. It gives the market a handle. And the market needs handles because people are busy, distracted, and self-interested. They do not have time to interpret your potential. They need to know quickly who you help, what problem you solve, and what result you can produce. This is why vague talent stays poor. Not because the talent is fake, because it is not positioned. A specific man is easier to remember. A specific offer is easier to trust. A specific proof is easier to evaluate. A specific result is easier to buy. Do not be the man who says, "I can help with anything." That is not power. That is desperation dressed as flexibility. Say exactly who you help. Say exactly what problem you solve. Say exactly what result you produce. Now the market can see you. This does not mean you will stay in that niche forever. It means you give yourself a clear battlefield long enough for proof to compound. The young man fears specificity because he thinks it will limit him. The strategic man understands specificity because he knows power needs a point of attack. A spear works because force is concentrated. A vague skill spreads force everywhere and penetrates nothing. So attach your skill to a market. Attach your market to a painful problem. Attach the problem to proof. Attach proof to a public channel. Attach the channel to weekly ritual. Now your learning becomes visible. Your visibility becomes reputation. Your reputation becomes trust. Your trust becomes opportunity. Your opportunity becomes leverage. But even then, most men fail at the final rule. They do the work for a few weeks. They publish a few proofs. They test the market once or twice. Then silence arrives, and silence terrifies them. Rule 9. Stay long enough to become known. Most men quit before the market has enough evidence to trust them. They mistake silence for failure. But silence at the beginning is not always failure. Sometimes silence means the market has not seen enough proof yet. Sometimes it means your offer is unclear. Sometimes it means your skill is still weak. Sometimes it means your distribution is insufficient. Sometimes it means you have not repeated long enough for memory to form around your name. This is where the unsupported man must become dangerous. He must outlast the emotional need to be recognized early. Recognition is not the foundation. Proof is. Most men want the market to respond quickly because they are not only seeking money, they are seeking relief. They want evidence that the path is real. They want reassurance that they are not wasting time. They want someone to confirm that they are becoming who they imagined. That need is human. But if it controls you, it will destroy your consistency. The market does not owe you emotional closure. The market updates slowly. It sees one proof and ignores it. It sees another proof and forgets it. It sees another proof and starts to notice a pattern. It sees another proof and begins to categorize you. It sees another proof and begins to trust that you are not just experimenting with an identity. That is why repetition matters. Repetition is how the market separates the serious from the excited. Anyone can publish once when motivation is high. Anyone can start when the identity feels fresh. Anyone can announce a plan. But staying long enough to become known requires a different kind of man. A man who can survive silence. A man who can keep producing without applause. A man who can accept correction without humiliation. A man who can repeat one direction until evidence compounds. Stay with one skill long enough for three things to happen. Your competence improves. Your proof accumulates. Your name becomes associated with a result. That is when skill begins to turn into leverage, and leverage is the real goal. Not learning, not looking intelligent, not telling people you are ambitious. Leverage, the ability to earn, the ability to choose, the ability to walk away, the ability to say no, the ability to stop negotiating for weakness. That is why high-income skills matter. Not because they sound impressive, because they can break dependence. They can move a man from invisible to visible, from replaceable to useful, from useful to scarce, from scarce to respected, from respected to difficult to ignore. But only if he stops wasting years, only if he stops collecting skills, only if he defines the buyer, only if he uses projects as the classroom, only if he measures everything, only if he gets feedback before readiness, only if he builds one public channel, only if he creates a weekly proof ritual, only if he attaches skill to a specific market, only if he stays long enough to become known. This is the identity shift. You are not a man waiting to discover the perfect skill. You are a man building evidence in public until the market is forced to update its judgment. You are not behind because you lack information. You are behind because your information has not been converted into proof. You are not invisible because the world is unfair. You are invisible because your value has not become visible enough, specific enough, or useful enough to create leverage. That can change. But not through another saved course, not through another motivational video, not through another month of private planning. Choose one skill, choose one buyer, choose one painful problem. Publish one proof every week for 90 days. No switching, no hiding, no begging to be believed. But understand this. Proof is only the first weapon. The next weapon is distribution. Because a man can build proof and still remain invisible if he does not know how to position it where the market already looks. This is the next battle most men do not see. They build something useful, then present it poorly. They produce proof, then hide it in the wrong place. They gain ability, then communicate like a beginner. They expect the market to investigate them instead of learning how judgment actually works. That is another form of naivety. The market does not search your soul. It reads signals. It reads clarity. It reads repetition. It reads proof. It reads positioning. It reads whether your value is easy to understand or expensive to interpret. So do not ask to be believed. Build until disbelief becomes expensive. Do not ask the world to see your potential. Convert potential into evidence. Do not wait for permission from people who do not control the path. Choose the path, build the proof, publish the evidence, take the feedback. Sharpen the offer. Repeat long enough for the market to remember you. High-income skill is not the real prize. The real prize is the man you become when your private ambition is no longer private. A man with proof. A man with leverage. A man with options. A man who no longer needs to explain himself to people who never had the power to build his future, become too visible to dismiss.